Hi everyone, most of you know me already, but if you don't, my name is Mel. And I wanted to share with you today a bit about my testimony. So if you don't know what a testimony is, it's basically just a story of your life and how you came to know Jesus, so how you became a Christian. So I'll start at the beginning, good place to start I guess. So I grew up in originally Penarth, but then moved to Barry, and I lived with my mum on her own. She was a single mum of 5 children, and I'm second in line of the 5. So having been one of the oldest, I helped out a lot because obviously there's a lot to take on your own with 5 children. So I helped out a lot with my siblings. We called them the 3 little ones. They were all always known as that. Not so little anymore, mind. So basically I grew up in a little area called the Colquitt part of Barry, and what would now be today known as a deficit area, so a place of deficit. There wasn't much there wasn't much for the children to do. We had, although what was great about it was that we could just walk to school, so school was around the corner. And I mean, life was okay for me growing up. There was 5 of us and mum struggled, but that was just how it was. It's what we kind of got used to. So when we were, maybe I was about 7 maybe, my mum started going to church. It was the kids club that we loved going to, so my mum would take a load of the children off the hands of her friends who she knew, and we'd all go together. My mum really enjoyed it and then became a leader there, so alongside that started going to church as well on a Sunday, and inevitably, because there was only us and no dad at home, we went along with her, so we went to church every Sunday too. And it was just always part of what we did, I guess, from a young age, and really enjoyed it. So there was always fun, awesome activities for children. So I really enjoyed Sunday school, and then kind of grew into the other things. So there's a youth club on a Friday, and the youth met on a Sunday as well. And it was there really that I really decided that I wanted to follow Jesus, because there was a summer camp. So we went on a summer camp in July of 2009, and that's when I decided to become a Christian. So I was listening to this talk and I was really overwhelmed by it, and I thought, and I'd kind of heard a lot of it before because I'd gone to church, so I'd heard about Jesus, I'd heard about who he was, but not in this sense where I think the words he used, I will always probably remember this. It's like you've got a hole in your heart and it needs filling, but this hole is only a God-filled hole. And that really kind of struck me and hit me in my heart and was like, oh gosh, I think I need that. I think I really need that in my life, and that's what God can fill for me. That's what God can do for me. So I decided to make a decision to follow Jesus. And from then onwards, I was a bit crazy enthusiastic growing up, so I would talk about Jesus a lot to people, and use my enthusiasm and fuel that. And there was this one youth leader in particular who really stuck out for me, and I'll talk about him every day to this day because he's great. His name was Johnny, and he basically nurtured me and helped me, which was amazing. A really, really lovely guy. But when I was 15, my life took a turn for the worse. My mum met a guy, bearing in mind she'd been on her own for 10 years. It was quite difficult for us to kind of get used to that. So I was 15, we were all still living at home, and she'd met a guy and moved him in straight away, which, me being the big mouth I wasn't happy with this. Thinking about what the Bible says about not living together until you're married, and I kind of voiced that, and my mum and him didn't like it. He was also not the best father figure for us, so he didn't get on with the 3 little ones. So my youngest brother, who was 12, decided to move out and go and live with my stepdad. stepdad called Paul lived around the corner, but at the same time was diagnosed with bowel cancer. So he was suffering and actually getting worse by the month. So at this point I kind of went into a phase of not going to church, actually blaming God for what had gone on, and just not having that in my life anymore. I didn't see the need for it. I actually didn't want to go somewhere where I felt that God was to blame for what I was doing and no one really understood. I still also didn't feel anybody understood me from church. So I went to live with my stepdad, and this is when things kind of turned around crazily for me. I'd never really been in with the in crowd in school, but I changed my ways and decided that was the way I wanted it to be. So I started changing my appearance. I started going to all the parties. I started to deal with things in a very different way. So whereas normally I'd go and talk to somebody, or I'd have mum by my side, or stepdad would have been there, but stepdad was actually suffering really harshly. I actually felt quite alone during this time, and I turned to alcohol. That was the main thing that I felt was going to cure everything, because when I was drunk and excited, things didn't matter. The things that actually mattered weren't there. I was like trying to phase it all away and pretend it wasn't there. But actually this is the time when I needed not to be doing that most. So this all happened in October time, and then by the January, my mum had moved away. So my mum had moved away completely, cut all contact with me, and inevitably left my brother and I on our own, which was fine because we were living with dad still. But unfortunately in the March, my dad passed away. So we then had nobody, and I became homeless. My brother was cared for by my dad's brother. I say dad, stepdad's brother. So he was temporarily cared for. However, I then became 16, looking for somewhere to live and what to do with my life, basically. Was trying to sit my GCSEs and focus on how I was going to help my brother and what we were going to do. So my dad's house had to be sold, and at that point I was homeless. I was sofa surfing on people's couches, and at this point I was in a really low place. I was feeling quite lonely, quite anxious, and I felt like I had nowhere to go, and everyone had given up on me. However, this one person, Johnny, I spoke about earlier, I may have given up on God, but God didn't give up on me. Oh no, he didn't. I didn't realise it at the time, and hindsight's a great thing, isn't it? But he was the guy who still came to do the paper round with me every morning and challenged me on why I needed so much money, which was for alcohol, which he kind of knew but was challenging me. He was accountable, he was asking how I was, he was there for me, he was consistent, and he showed a never-ending love. And even though I didn't see this at the time, looking back, that guy is the reason I'm here today. He's the reason that, that actually things are still carrying on, and that's also the reason why I felt called to ministry. So having a youth leader like that in my life made me realise how I would like to be that for somebody else. I would like to be the person who's always there, the person to chat to, the person who, when needs it most, I can be that there for them. However, this isn't about me and isn't about what I want. Actually, it was God that changed my life around. So one day when I was sofa surfing on my friend's sofa, my auntie, who had become a Christian 4 years prior to this, came and got me and said, "You're coming to live with me, I need to sort this out for you." And I was a bit reluctant. I was like, "No, you live in Dinas, I'm in Barry," so a bit of a huge change for me. Dinas is a little village and I'm used to like big town like Barry, and everybody knew everybody. I thought, oh gosh, this is a new experience, no one's going to know me. So I went to live with her. had no other choice really. And as I say, she became a Christian 4 years before that. So again, God was in it. God had a plan, and I went to church with her and her family, and every Sunday she would make me go, no matter how hungover I was. And to this day I thank her, but at the time I did not. I wasn't okay with that. So I'm really thankful that she did do that, and that I can now focus on God. And from there onwards, really, that was my call to ministry. I went to Bible college. I've done a degree in applied theology, and I'm now a youth worker. So that's a bit about me. And just to say a little bit about it, on this topic of Easter, I really feel that someone needs to hear that today, that someone in particular just really needs to know that there's such a big light at the end of a stormy, in this instance we could say tomb, but like a tunnel or a tomb where it all seems dark and gloomy. There's always light, there's always hope. So keep on believing and you will come through it. Thank you for listening.